Everybody vamos, put up your manos. There was a time to unite all Chicanos, Latinos, and Los Estados Unidos. Don't care if you're Ricans or even Cubanos. Look at our coaches. We have more in common, don't let them divide. These suckers are vultures. Either we standing together or better be standing aside. Now was the time, don't know about you, but I'm gonna ride. We gotta climb, fight for your Vegas, man, where was your pride? Where were the gunners that you got inside? Look how our ancestors came to this country. They tried to be living the American dream. Don't throw it away. They promise you money and got your agent for the machine. Pick a new team, you bless socialism, but that is a system that you wanna bring. You need to think, we gotta fight communism, cause it look like we on the brink. Connect on the links, so one party system is taking the power from all of the people. We need to think, when will you listen? These people are evil and want you to sequel, so what is your plan? Hand in hand, we're standing together, cause it's the one never to do what you can. Please understand, we gotta do better, so walkers remember that we took a stand. Escúchame, 24 es el año, si se puede. Lucha, lucha por la libertad. Órale, vamos.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Latino Free Minds, episode number 86. We're back at it. Another Know Your Candidate episode. Today we have Carlos Garcia, who's running for California State Senate District 29. Carlos, thank you for coming on. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. And hey, that introduction, man, with the music and all that, who's the brains behind that? I need an intro like that, man. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I got you up there.
I try.
Awesome.
How you doing, Danny?
Good. You know, just another day. Getting closer to the election.
Yeah.
I told you guys I got my fireworks ready already for November 5th. So can't wait. Countdown. Hey, we need a countdown.
You should be running a clock. Yeah, exactly. How many minutes, hours, days left over, man, for sure.
For sure, man. No, I'll probably have to go over there. Call in sick on the 6th.
What date does it land on anyways?
Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tuesday the 5th.
It should almost be a holiday, right? The day after, right? Like a
Yeah.
just a full-on holiday.
Yeah, you either party too hard or you're too damn sad to go to work.
Oh man. I want to party. I want it to be because we party too hard.
That's right.
Not because of sadness.
Yeah, man. But Carlos, tell us a little bit about yourself, your district and all that, and kind of I guess the first main question we always ask everybody is kind of what led you into wanting to run for this position, and just kind of how you got started.
No, and first of all, thank you both, and thank you to your program also for allowing me the opportunity to sit here and share with you guys a little bit about my race. You know, I got started I'm currently a city councilman, so this is how I got started in politics. I will also tell you that don't ever call me a politician because I cannot stand the word. Right, I'm a servant leader, man, and that's what I'm all about, serving our community. Yeah. And like, you know, we're kind of talking behind the scenes there a little bit. For me, it's always been about making a difference. It's not about, you know, a title. I'm going to get into politics and all that, because the truth be told, I cannot stand politics and what it stands for, right? So I'm here just to make sure that we change the perception, we change the culture, and we really, you know, take a look at who's really serving our community, serving us versus serving themselves. And I think that's what it really comes down to it. I will tell you that I'm also, I'm an immigrant. I came here as a kid from Nicaragua, right? And I lived there as a kid. It's back in the late 70s. I lived there through the war for 2.5 years and came here to this country. We had nothing. We were able to, I always believe in faith is always a priority, dude. And I'm sitting here talking to you guys by God's mercy and grace. You know, that's the bottom line. But what has stuck to me throughout all this years as a kid and growing up was always that people were willing to always help us, strangers, you know what I mean? Give us a hand. No agenda. I mean, I'm honest to God, it was just strangers. And it's something that has stuck with me, and always trying to pay it forward. You know, it's why I got into this career, let me take that back, not career, into this opportunity to make changes. So District 29 covers Upland, covers Rancho Cucamonga, Fontana, Rialto, Colton, San Bernardino, Redlands, Highland, Bloomington, parts of Grand Terrace, Muscoy, and a little bit of Loma Linda as well too. So it's a pretty large district.
Mm-hmm. that's good. Oh, were you gonna say something, Danny?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I used to work in that area. Beautiful area. One of the biggest differences that I noticed when every time that I traveled up there is your guys' freeways and streets were so much cleaner than the streets up here in Northern California. And that was right around between 2010 and 2018 when I used to
Okay.
travel down there. And I was going to ask you, has anything changed since then? Is it still the way that I remember it, or?
Actually, let me ask you, where in Northern California are you? Because we lived up there, my family and I, for about 2.5 years in Petaluma
Oh,
for a
okay,
bit.
Stockton, California,
Okay,
Modesto area.
gotcha.
Yeah.
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 So, with years that go by, things change, right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
we're experiencing a lot of not only in our county and actually in our state, a lot of chaos because of decisions and legislation and legislators that have actually kind of ruined California. California, as I remember it as a kid, was just a beautiful place to be. But you have a lot of disasters now, right? And I mean disasters by laws that have been put in place that do not really care about the community. And I think that's part of what that my drive has been, that we need change, man. It's as years go by, infrastructure also goes down. A lot of these beautiful cities are suffering because you have like potholes everywhere. You have infrastructure that's failing because in some cases it's over 100 years old. So how do you look at generating revenue to kind of help some of our cities? More importantly, how do you do that to help our law enforcement, our public safety as well too, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if get right down to it, you're not going to have a great community without the support of public safety, our police officers. That's always should be a top priority, that we don't have to worry about going down the street, walking or whatever, because you feel safe, right? We can't really say that now, especially in today's environment. So to your question, long answer to your question, it's not the same as it once was, but it can be. If
Mm-hmm.
if we start just paying attention, start putting in the right people in place, and just getting back to common sense.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you're touching on, and behind the scenes, we were talking about manipulation, with the, you know, politicians, school system, popular culture, entertainment, and education system. And one of the things that I remember before I really paid attention to politics is some of the debates are no longer popular, but when they did have debates, presidential debates specifically, they would always bring up tax dollars, everybody paying their fair share, and they would talk about maintaining the roads and stuff like that. But as I started looking into how roads actually get maintained, power lines get maintained, and things of that nature, there's dollars allocated to that maintenance that aren't necessarily all from the tax dollars. So one of the big questions that I have for everybody is, we talk about um, raising money and taking care of those issues, but my big question is, what are we going to do to make sure that the dollars that they're already taxing us or that we're paying for DMV fees are actually being allocated for the purpose that they're meant to be? I think that's a big um, subject that isn't talked about enough. And I guess what I'm saying is an audit.
Right. I think I'll take it a step further than that. Okay. So
Hmm.
you have audits, but I think when it comes right down to it, it's accountability, right? When you
Hmm.
look at all of this expenditures, and I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to tie it into the homelessness issues that we currently are experiencing too.
Hmm.
Part of the problem is, that there's billions and billions of dollars that have been spent, on homelessness and trying to give folks the help that they need, right? The reality is, and I've said this before, there's a lot of nonprofits and organizations. Homelessness is a money making machine. Let's be honest, right? I'm not saying that all nonprofits, all of these organizations, there's quite a bit that are really doing the job and helping people, but there's also those other ones that are not really there to help somebody. It's more about building their wealth or building their company, right? And I say this because I've been at a round table with one of the Congress people for our veterans. Veterans are very dear to me. And we talked about accountability. And one of the things that I brought up was, why don't we have a committee or a task force that looks into all of this, right? Looks into the tax. You're talking about the money that we're taking in. Where is that accountability? And how do we tell folks, look, this is a running tab of what we're spending money on for X, Y, and Z, right? If we're being honest, there should be no issue in transparency, right? But I think when from the outside looking in, like what we're all doing, sometimes we just take the word of what they're telling us without really looking and doing our homework. And I think that's also part of the problem, right? We don't ask the right questions, and we don't demand some of this accountability. At the end of the day, it's not just the person running the person that's representing our cities or county or whatever it is. It's all of us, man. We're all responsible for it. And I think when it comes right down to it, it is sometimes people get complacent and don't speak up, or don't ask the right questions to the right people also. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I think too, it goes back to us, right, as citizens of California, of not just letting that continue to happen. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Where they're spending all these billions and billions of dollars. And the example you gave, right, homelessness, but the situation's getting worse. And I think it comes to us as citizens to make that, you know, make that change, right? Because that's why we have all these elections. That's why we have these people like yourself and Nick and everybody that we've talked to, is because for the most part, when it comes to California, living here and all that, I feel like there's a lot of people that are tired of what's been going on. I really do feel that, and I really do feel that there's a lot of um, seats that are very winnable this time around,
Mhm.
and we've talked to a lot of great candidates, and I really do think a lot of them have a good shot of actually winning, and I'm praying and I hope that they do, but it's going to be up to us as the citizens of this state to make that change. Otherwise, we run into where we have representatives, so to speak, that don't represent us. They represent a party, and they're in there, like you said, right? It's a career. It's not. They're not going in just to serve. They're what do you call it? They're making a career out of it.
Right.
So yeah, it's your opponent. How long has she been in office?
So my opponent is Eloise Reyes. She's been in office as an assembly woman for the last 8 years, for 2 terms. She was at one point the assembly speaker of the House. And this is her last term, and she would term out. So to your point, she's also has sat in the Public Safety Committee in Sacramento, um, and yet here we are, 8 years, and can we honestly say that our safety has gotten better? It has not. The other thing I'm going to share with you is, between both of us, I'm the only candidate that's running as the public safety candidate. And what that basically means for you and your viewers is, I have been endorsed by all of San Bernardino County police chiefs, sheriffs, Sheriff Dykes, Sheriff Bianco, the state as well too, PORAC, the Sheriff's Association, SEBA, and all of law enforcement. So that to me is them wanting change, needing change, because at the end of the day, right, it's the same policies that they have created that have led us here. Prop 47, right now you're hearing probably a lot about Prop 36. And if you're listening, this is something you guys need to look into, and it's a positive thing so we can amend some of the damage that these guys have created in the last decade, with Prop 47. So it's important, like we were talking about, that we do our homework, that we don't just take don't take my word for it. Don't take any of the other candidates' word for it. Do your homework, because that's how we're going to make change happen. And at the end of the day, I still hear that people say that my vote doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, because at the end of the day, you're not worried about the national issues. You're worried about your backyard, your front yard, right? Where you going down to shop? Where you going for your schools. This is all local. It's not a whole national thing, even though it's happening. But we got to start focusing on our own cities and our own communities.
100%. Daniel and I were talking about before we got onto, on the backstage, if we did our homework on our ballot, did you receive your ballot? Yeah. And, start going down each one and making sure that we understand what's going on, in our districts, and, we're making the right choices. It's sad because people don't invest so much time into doing that, but and guilty is charged. I start doing something else that isn't as important, but you know um doing this homework, we joke around and say it's not sexy, but we have to do something about it. We and and what that looks like is doing our homework, encouraging other people to do the same homework, or bring it up in conversation. I know it's really awkward, but one thing that I have noticed in the past year, easily 2024, is that people are more willing to engage in these type of conversations. I don't know if you both have seen that, but that's something that I've experienced.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
No, and for sure, man. And some of the conversations had about there is when I talk to people, I always say, look, if we're going to talk about a certain issue, just take the emotion out of it. Let's just talk like two human beings, right? It's not about red. It's not about blue. I don't care, whatever it is. Let's just talk about as two neighbors, two people coming together and just as having a professional or just a plain discussion, right?
Hmm.
And I think
A grown
when
up,
you
a
get to that,
grown up,
yeah,
reasonable discussion. Yep.
absolutely. And when you get to that level where there's no tension because of emotions, you can get a lot done,
Hmm.
and I think that's been very important in my race because when I talk to folks, it's like, okay, I am representing the Republican Party, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm only going to be representing the Republicans. It means that I'm representing all of us, regardless if you're an independent, Democrat, or whatever. And I got to tell you, man, there's a lot of even from the Democratic Party who have actually have told me. For example, I had one tell me that I've been a hardcore left Democrat and all that, but you are the first Republican I've ever voted for. And I was like, wow, that's cool. So I asked her, I said, so why is that? She says, because I've known what you've done already in the current office that you're in, and you're a man of your word, and you've never judged me by who I am and so forth. So it's like if we can have that mindset with everyone, forget party affiliation and all, but just focus on the candidate, it'll be a game changer, man. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
what you said earlier really resonated, and we kind of do that in my line of work. I work in an industry where we're trying to change the face of the industry or the perception of the industry. And what you said that that person told you must feel so good, because every time someone hears anybody being public service or a politician, I know you don't like that word, uh, it has a negative connotation to it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you doing that, you changed one person's perspective, and based on that conversation that you had, but I'm sure you changed more than that one person's. But um, that's great that you're doing that. And everybody that we have spoken to, Daniel and I have brought this up many times, is when you come off and you speak, and and the sincerity, the genuineness, comes out, that's attractive to people. You get someone's ear and they really start listening, and that negative connotation just starts to fade away. So that's great. We need more people doing that.
No, and you know what? It's true, man. Because when you talk to people like people, it just changes everything, right? It's. I always tell folks, what you see is what you get. I don't change based on who I'm talking to. This is me, man. This is me, like just like you and I, hanging out, talking. I'm not gonna hold back and give you all those right answers that you want to hear and all that because I'm going to call it out too. And I've always told folks too is if we're having conversations, let me know if I'm doing something wrong, right? Because the last thing you want is keep doing the same mistake over and over and nobody tells you because somebody's too afraid to tell you. And I'm that guy that's going to always be just blunt and honest. And you may love me or hate me for it, but you'll know where I stand. And I also appreciate that in return. Again, having a respectful conversation, but we get more done that way than just trying to dance around the issues or just talking bluntly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you gonna
Have,
ask something, Daniel?
no, I was just gonna ask because I think I asked this to all the candidates. Have have you debated your opponent, or is it a no go from them?
Actually, you know what? I did. It was actually about 3 weeks ago. It was a candidate forum held by the Rancho Chamber, and we it was an evening for all candidates. So they had Senate, Assembly, school board, and their own council. And we were giving four random questions. Obviously, there was you couldn't rebuttal, so you have to give each other an opportunity to answer. But I couldn't rebuttal regarding what she was saying. The reality is, and I'm just saying this because you've seen this, right? In her mind, from what I saw, everything is fine,
Hmm.
right? Things are going great. Like I said earlier, she sits in the public safety committee in Sacramento. Tell me if public safety is an issue that we've actually addressed and we're doing phenomenal. We can't, right? We talked about also opportunities for what I said about accountability. So we need accountability in government. To your point earlier, I'm not that career politician because when it's all said and done, I'm going back to my business to continue doing what I set out to do. I'm not looking for that next, oh, this position opened up, so I'm going to hop over here. I always believe, man, in the way I was raised, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Things happen in our lives for a purpose, and it's always God putting things in our path for a reason. You don't question it. You just find, okay, what is it that you want me to get out of this too, right? And it's the same thing when people come into our lives, right? It's not coincidence. There's a reason why this person crossed your path. There's a reason why they're part of your journey now too. And I've developed a lot of great friendships and brotherhoods and sisterhoods that way too, because of it's a situation where you just let God sometimes take over it, and He'll give you exactly what it is that you need to do for that person or for that situation. And at the end of the day, man, like I said, it comes back to just serving our community, serving our neighbors, serving our family, our kids, and just making that difference or giving them hope that there's the light at the end of the tunnel. And when we were talking a little bit earlier too, I don't know if you know this or not, but you know that there's only 5 seats that we would have to turn in this California Senate to break the supermajority. Just 5 seats, man. So we are that close to be able to just finally be able to get some traction in making changes, but it's going to take all of us to make sure that we vote for the right candidates to be able to do that.
Yeah. Um, I was in one of the previous shows. I shared this bumper sticker that I had seen, and it said if the 99% voted, the 1% wouldn't matter, and it holds a lot of weight, a lot of water, because there's so many people that don't go out there and vote. And my question to you is, have you had anybody come up to you and similar to like that lady told you that she was a Democrat and she voted for you? Have you heard any stories of people saying that they never vote but they are going to vote? And the reason that I asked that is you hear statistics in polls where, um, for example, majority of Christians, it's over 50% that don't vote. I think it's closer to like 60% or something like that. And my question always goes back to that, is that why aren't they voting? Why aren't they voting? What is it about? Is it these people aren't genuine on both sides, so they don't vote? Are they waiting for someone to come in that they see that they are genuine, that maybe their values are faith-based, Christian-based, in order for them to go and vote? What's your thought on that? Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, so I've been it's funny because when I first started this campaign, I went to a pastors summit, and it was all Spanish speaking pastors in San Bernardino. And it was the first time where I actually heard politics being discussed among pastors. So there's been
Wow.
this movement. Yeah, there's been this movement where in the Latino community where they want to get the word out, and I was able to go on a Christian radio show and speak about this in Spanish to their audience as well. One of the other one of the other pastors has been very vocal about all of this is Jack Hibbs from Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. We've
Mm.
had an opportunity with the Real Impact program to be able to share, about our candidacy and so forth. But this is also these are pastors, these are leaders that are telling other pastors that the time to be quiet is long gone. We need to step up. We need to talk about it because I think there's also that taboo that you don't mix politics with church. And I'm not saying that you have to talk about it on the pulpit, but you have an entire congregation and you can have a candidate night or something in there, bring in candidates so they can learn more about what's going on. You know, on that church, they talk about all the propositions. They talk about everything that's happening in California so they can all be informed. And that's part of the problem, right? A lot of them just don't want to get involved, don't want to cross that line. But we need to just, if we're going to make a difference, we just have to just step up, get out of that comfort zone and talk about it, you know?
No, yeah.
Do,
That my no. Well, my question. Uh, what you said makes sense, but I had a different question, so I don't know if you have a follow up on that, Danny.
well, just a comment based on what you said, and I agree with everything that you said, and I'm glad that people are speaking up because I think that's what something that they put over our head so that we don't have that conversation. So it goes back to that divide and conquer situation, right? And someone had actually told me that, but I go, you know, what if it comes down to spiritual guidance, just there a lot of these things that are happening, there's a lot of evil. And if it doesn't sit well in your heart, you need someone to talk to, right? So whether it's a pastor, someone that you trust in the church, and you really um hold dear, their their words and advice, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a conversation, like we said earlier. So why is it that we can't have those conversations? So I agree with what you said, and I'm really glad that that is happening.
But it's also take it another step, right? We have a lot of our kids who are now have become eligible to vote. They just turned 18 too, right?
Hmm.
And if we're
Hmm.
not teaching them as parents what's right from wrong, because the reality is, dude, I'm going to say it right now. The times we're in, it's almost like the battle of good versus evil. Let's take
Yeah.
the worst of the worst. Let's take the worst and try to break up our the family unit. Let's take the worst of the worst, break up our communities, break up each other as neighbors or talking to each other normally. Everything is like an attack, right? Everyone's become so sensitive on things that, and I think that's part of the shutdown, that nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings. Nobody wants to say the wrong thing. And it's like, how did we get here? That's part of it, right? That's all basic communication. We can't talk as human beings, and what do we got, right? It, it,
Yeah.
it's it's strange. And like for my son, for example, he's now at the age of vote. I actually took him. We did our ballots. We took him to the voter registers, and it was like a
Awesome.
not only a proud dad moment, but a proud moment that, hey man, my kid is officially in. Like he's voting on his own. With everything that he's got his own influence. Like and I'm sitting. Obviously, he voted for me, so I'm like, all right, son, we got one, right? I got one vote.
Yeah.
That's what's
But
up.
yeah,
Put that one in
exactly.
the bank.
Exactly. But the cool thing is, man, that I've also seen him that after he voted, after he started doing his own homework on there, he's sharing that with his friends and telling them, you guys need to get out there and vote. You guys need to also talk about it. And so seeing that from him gives me hope of our youth also, that they're also learning more. But again, like everything else, it starts at home with us, right? It's our responsibility not to sway them one way or another, because I want them to have their own free think, their free mind also to think how they want. They can ask a million questions, and he has, but we go through it together. Sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate. A lot of our Latino families, man, they're working 2, 3 jobs. They don't have time to sit down with their kids and do this. So kids are listening for what's on the news, what's on social media, this and that. and they don't really have the time to sit down as a family unit to really talk about, hey, this is how this is going to affect us as a family moving forward.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how we fix that, because obviously the necessity is there to work and all that, but as adults, as even in education and teachers, we need to actually just mentor kids in showing both sides, let them make decisions, but be truthful about it. Don't, you know
Mm.
what I mean? Try to slide
Don't
something
sugar
under the
don't
radar, you know?
sugarcoat it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Daniel and I have spoken about that at length, is being the biggest influence in our kids' lives. So obviously God, has to be number one as far as influence goes. But it starts with the parents. The parents are the ones that bring that influence into our children's, lives. So we can't allow the school system, popular culture, entertainment, and give them the reins to that. So, yeah, we got to do a better job, and I think um, that's the first step in correcting it. In my opinion. Um, and one of the crazy things, have you guys heard the Paul Harvey speech? He was like um, radio personality back in the day. I think it was. I don't know if it was the 70s or early 80s or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. But anyways, he was on a TV show, and he had written down something, and it was if I was the devil. That's that was the caption, right? The title. And he goes list by list, but one of the things that he says, if I was the devil, I would attack the family unit and separate it first. And when you listen to things like that and you start thinking about it, that's exactly where we're living. These people have taken that playbook, and that's what they have been applying, and they've been applying it for a very long time. So we just need to wake up and you know get people like you in office and change things up.
Well, you remember, right? And I don't recall if it's from the Bible or not, but it's that old saying that the greatest gift that the devil has is making people believe that he doesn't exist, right?
Mm,
And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. But to your point, man, it comes down to us as parents to make that change, to make sure that we're leading our kids in the right direction. I will tell you, I remember growing up with some of my friends. Some of my friends had, moms used the famous chancla, right? So you got out of line, man. You got that done. For me, it was my mom was handicapped, so she would use the cane to make sure we got, we were corrected in the right way. Although, nowadays it's like, God forbid we do something, something like that with kids because of all these laws, regulations, and all that. But dude, I will tell you that growing up, and I'm sure you can relate to this, it was hard. You know how you resent your parents for being so strict and all of that and this, that, whatever. But as adults, man, I've taken a look back and just I'm grateful that I went through all that because it made me who I am today and is what I'm trying to lead by example with my son. Obviously not, the spanks or whatever, but just taking things to a whole different level. So he understands that um, there's consequences to actions, and I think that that's also something that we've lost over time.
yeah.
Again, I'll go back to saying accountability, not only in government, but even in our own households, because, parents are gone because of work or things like that. So there's not that, like we just said, that family unit, or even having grandma at home, right? That would always be helpful too, right? Because she would keep us in line.
Mm,
But I think that it's as adults, man, if we know families and kids, it's our responsibility to pay that forward and mentor some of these kids, man. Have those conversations that they can't have at home, and just be a voice for them. Because the last thing you want, man, for them to fall in the wrong direction and go down the path that it's just once they go down that rabbit hole, it's going to be very hard to pull them from there. But why not have those conversations? Hey, how you doing? Or what's going on? Or just simple things like that that they know that there's somebody that cares. Bottom
yeah.
line.
Yeah.
No,
Did
well
you have
said.
something, Daniel?
No, just a lot of the stuff that you just said right now in these past 5 minutes or so, it encompasses like, a lot of what, because you asked us, I think, before we started, why we started, how we started the podcast and all that. But a lot of the stuff you just said, it kind of is the why of why we do it. You know what I mean? Um, Making these conversations, like Danny said earlier, I think he said making it more cool, right? To have these conversations at home and, and being that big influence, the biggest influence for your kid, and making sure that, you know, we're not just letting them be out there. A lot of parents have to send their kids to public school, right? And a lot of parents can't homeschool. And like you said, also a lot of parents work, you know, a job that either they work many hours or they got to work a couple jobs, and there's not that time that maybe they would want to put. So some kids are kind of just
I
really
know, man.
dependent on the school system, right? On the influence they get there, so to speak, by their teachers, their peers, or whatnot. But one of the things here is we want it so that the parent is taking that role. Be the leader of your home, because encompassing into everything what you're saying is that's how I think a lot of these issues get fixed. Is if you start at home, a lot of these issues will eventually, with time, because sometimes it's a long battle, but with time, with the next generation, maybe, things start correcting. And, some people don't want to wait that long and don't have the patience for that. And maybe that's probably why they don't want to vote too, because they go, what's the point? But it does start at home. You have to be activated, you have to participate, and you have to set up the next generation to be better, right? I think as a parent, that's the goal, right? For your kids all the time. It's like, I want my kid to have it better than I did. I think many parents kind of have that mentality. So, that includes all this stuff too. So that's kind of
Yeah.
the thoughts I have while you guys were kind of saying that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll give you two comments to that are that go with that. One is when COVID hit, man, I was teaching online for doing videography, which is like you can't really do that online, right? With COVID, right? It was the kids were having their laptops or whatever, they would have to come on. The sad part about all of this to me was it wasn't that so much the fact that I couldn't really teach them like I would be able to do it in a classroom, but it was the fact that I as I started going through some of these classes with them, I realized that the kids became parents overnight because you would hear their little brothers and sisters crying next to them. They were tending to them. Some of them were cooking in the middle of this class, dude, because parents were just trying to make ends meet. And all of a sudden, a kid became an adult taking care of, all their siblings and doing this. So it didn't. It's hard to expect them to also learn trying to take care of a family household when they're just. It's a necessity. You know what I mean? And to me, that's one of the things that stood out for me during this whole pandemic thing that we put our kids through is how quickly they lost their youth, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
this from that, a lot of problems came out of that. Some kids came out okay, thank God. Some other kids needed additional help.
Yeah, there
But
was a lot of mental health, depression
yes,
issues. Yeah.
absolutely, man. And it was to me, it was very sad in the sense too that I couldn't do anything about it, and just to be able to go through trying to teach them and hearing all of this, dude, it's heartbreaking. Like your hands are tied because you can't really help them to do something, but at the same time, it's like it's hard to sit on the sidelines when you're trying to figure out a way to help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that was very hard. And most recently, I actually got an opportunity to speak at a barber college. Had a group of about 50 kids, and I say kids, good dude. Anybody below 50 for me is a kid, right? So, uh,
I'm a kid.
but there you go, man. You guys are all kids, man. I won't go as far as saying little kids, but you guys are kids, right? Um, but but I'll tell you, I shared my story with them. I also told them what I would tell my students in class is that you're all going to get to the top. You're going to be very successful if you put time and effort into it. But I said, I want you to always remember something is remember where you started. Remember that when you get to that top, your obligation is to help those that are behind you, help them get there too. So what you see in this room when you talk to people, this is part of how you're building your tribe, because you never know when you're going to have to ask someone for help. And I will tell you that if you're truly into really helping people, you're going to be there to support them to get to that next level, right? Um, Fortunately, and I'm not saying this to brag, man, but the gentleman that invited me said, I don't know what you did, dude, but he goes, "You're the first speaker that I've ever had that the kids were so interactive to the point where they wanted me to help them to get registered to vote for you." I'm like, "That's awesome." It was the last thing
Wow.
on my mind, but
There
just the
you
fact,
go.
Nice, nice.
right? But it's the fact that you take the time to talk to our young minds, right? You have to set that example to know that things are possible, man. Nothing's impossible. We live in a country where there's opportunity everywhere, and it all takes about, again, faith first, your family, and then busting your tail to make sure that you get to where you need to go. But the moral of the story is helping people. That's the bottom line, and that's how you grow. Not only as an individual, but as a community. As Latinos, we have to help one another. Bottom line.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that you said right now is about young people and actually talking to them and them being engaged if you genuinely want to help them and want to give them good advice. And one of the things that I feel, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to agree with this, is that kids and young adults are underestimated in that sense. Is that, we feel like they're really not interested or they don't care. But if you actually take the time to talk to them, you'll find out that they yearn for that, they thirst for that, whether it's attention or that conversation, advice. And a lot of people, like I said, underestimate that. So you taking the time to do that, I feel that that's the reason that you got the reaction that you did. And, just sure enough, you were talking about it a little bit ago, is, those people that the statistics that say that, young men or women don't go out and vote, whether it's Latinos, whites, blacks, Asians, or whatever. But that group that you talk to of young people, now you brought them into a different statistic that they're going to go out there and vote.
Yeah.
So, we shouldn't underestimate kids and young adults. They're very smart. If we can transfer knowledge or wisdom that we've learned throughout our lifetimes, we should do that every opportunity that we can.
Yeah, we just gotta help them from not being misguided.
Exactly.
No, absolutely. And I think what it comes down to, man, is just even when I was teaching younger age students too, I've always had this thing that I was raised calling them sir, right? So little kid, I always call them sir, ma'am, and
Hmm.
that's all I call people. Obviously, when we get to adults, some adults say, "Well, don't call me sir, that's my dad," or whatever, but just out of respect, right? And I
Hmm.
think when you go into that mentality to talk to kids as a young adult and don't treat them like a kid, it changes everything, right? Because most
Yeah.
most kids get talked down to, but when you put them at the same level and trying to have a conversation with them, when you're trying to teach them or listen to them, it opens up a whole different world, man, for them. That's like, oh wow, I can actually say what's on my mind, and there's not going to be, I'm not going to get slammed down or whatever. But again, it's always using that. Just be respectful when you're talking to someone. Bottom line,
It's
you know.
it's that mutual respect. You gain their respect, and you give them respect. They give you your respect, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
No, that's
because dude,
awesome.
I was involved with helping continuation high schoolers, and the group in continuation high school, it's the I probably would have wound up there too at some point, I think, right? But this is, I think, why I can relate to them, and it's all it takes is really one, and I don't want to say an example. When you direct yourself to one of them that's acting out, and you can actually break through, it just changes the whole dynamics. But it's you have to be able to relate in order to be able to do that. Because let's face it, dude, a kid can see BS coming a mile away, dude, right?
Yeah.
And you can see when a kid is also BSing you, or a young adult, or any adults for that matter, right? And it's
Yeah.
and it's all about just being truthful. It's all about just being authentic and just say it like it is, and also be ready to accept it like it is also, because it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So The question that I was going to ask earlier, you brought up Prop 36 and how that's on the ballot to, you know, to make certain, I believe it's having certain drugs a felony and any theft under $950 also. Um, so, let's say, when you win and you're in the Senate for California, do you think there's something else that needs to be done along with that so that, because I think that's a good prop, right? But are the police going to have the ability or the freedom to do their job? Because you know what I'm saying? Because we can pass the prop, but if they don't get that, they don't have the ability to do the job. You know what I mean? Is it going to be pointless? Not that it is. I'm just kind of, you know.
Right, right. I get what you're saying. So keep in mind that Prop 36, it's a start to amending what 47 has done, right? The interesting thing is that all the folks that are opposing 47 are the folks that believe that everything is okay. Like we shouldn't really be that hard on criminals, right? We should basically let them continue doing what they're doing. The nice thing about 36 is, again, it's just an amendment. It's not going to change things because keep in mind what I said earlier. We don't have a supermajority, right? It's the
Mhm.
party right now currently in place that has a supermajority, so they get to call the shots. And when I said earlier that we have 5 seats that we need to turn in order to break that, then we can start creating policies, can start creating things that are going to build on. Let's just say, example, Prop 36, that are going to help our public safety, that are going to help our officers too. But it's no point for me to tell you that, hey, we're going to get there and do that, because it has to change. We have to change who's already in place, right? Change these politicians that have created this. uh, Again, it goes back to even in some of the cities, dude, that are very upset that people are voting for 36 because they want 47. They think it's an injustice to the criminals and all of that. It's like,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, man, they're criminals, right? If you do the time, if you do the crime, you're gonna do the time, and that's the way it used to be. And for whatever reason, we just now it's just like a slap on the wrist, and you're right back out, right?
Yeah.
So think about the ripple effect with that. With no law, there's always chaos. There's no safety, right? Without law and order. Prop
Mhm.
36 is going to try to help amend some of that and hold folks accountable. Now, there's another component to that. Folks that are under the influence, drugs, and all of that, you're going to have an option because it's going to help that too, right? So you're either going to get help or you're going to go to jail, right? And that's something that I've also heard regarding this proposition. So there's key components that are going to address mental health and all that, but it's not a fix for everything, right? The damage has been done, but it's going to take a little while. And this is the first step, hopefully, in many other things that are coming once we're able to break that supermajority. And that's what I'm hoping for, man, with this election, that it's not just about my race, it's about all these candidates that are willing to go up there and make that change. We need the involvement of you guys, the community, those listening, and all that. Again, because the vote matters if we really want to finally see change in California. Because we've been at this for decades, and it just has not worked.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you said right now, we've also talked at length, and it's one of those things where people have to be patient too, is that this has happened over a long period of time. The Democrats have had the supermajority for a very long time. Um, and it, like you said, with that proposition, it's one step closer to fixing things. We can't go for, we've talked about it. You can't go for the Hail Mary that's going to fix everything. It's going to be 5 yards at a time, um, until we get there. God willing, like you said, those 5 seats get flipped. And then, something, instead of taking 5 yard chunks, we could start getting 10
Right.
yards, get first downs at a time, and then get to where we want to be. Um, but going back to, you know, people, politicians opposing this proposition, is let's just be honest, is that The reason that they want it this way is so that they can keep the crime statistics down, so that they can say that they've been doing a good job. So it goes back to manipulation, in my opinion. There's no other reasonable explanation other than that, because everybody sees the crime, they see the crime. So I don't know if anybody could make it make sense, but that's what I see.
No, and it's true, man. It's never going to change unless we start, like we said, we just with small steps, on there. The current legislation right now, it's if you notice that things start changing like 6 months prior to an election. All of a sudden, you
Hmm.
see politicians go out there. They're starting to attend things. They'll start doing this. They'll start doing that. And why? Because now it's election time. Now I want to save my seat. I want to continue as a career politician, do what I've been doing for the last 4, 8 years, 10, 20, whatever, however long you've been in office.
Yeah.
The problem with that is, and this is something that I'm going to share with you now that I want to take into this race once elected too. In my city, for example, from day one, man, I have actually had coffee with the councilman, which is usually like the last Saturday of every month. And what that means is I invite our community, our residents, I invite our business community, I invite our veterans also to talk about issues that are happening in between each month.
Hmm.
I want to take that concept, and I'm also going to get ready to launch this. And I've also created something here called for example, the Upland Business Community, which I'm also trying to help promote some of our local businesses who are struggling, right? Because what I shared with you guys earlier, what I do for a living, I help promote them also. There's nothing in it for me except one business owner helping another. So that's the same concept I want to take through my entire district here. Is number one, set up meetings, whether it's quarterly or however we are going to set this up with number one, with our public safety, our chiefs in the county, right? Find out what's going on in every city. I want to take an opportunity to also have these roundtables with business owners, find out what the business community is actually doing, our veterans, right? Our any other group that I can sit with and learn more about what's going on, including our residents as a priority. But I want to be able to hear it from them because at the end of the day, just like in any business and anything that we do, it's the people that are experiencing it every day are in the trenches doing this versus me or any politician. Really, just all they do is just get reports and they'll read about it or they'll hear about it, but not being that involved. I like hands-on. I like hearing this directly from you, the resident, the business owner, the law enforcement. So I know exactly what's going on. So the next time when we meet, I can say, hey, we talked about this. This is where we're going with this direction, and just build that pathway to success completely among each group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's engagement. It's starting,
Right.
those conversations, really listening to people. You know, um, you hear all these politicians speak, and you could tell that they're not genuine. Going back to what we were talking about, but it's so funny that you said, that once the election starts getting closer, they start changing a little bit. You start seeing their face a little bit more. They start talking, and saying all those pleasant things that everybody wants to hear. And as I drive through the streets right now, I see them getting a little bit cleaner. Um, and
True.
people are getting shuffled around, and I see police officers doing their job now. I see billboards. We will enforce the law. Call, or come to this website to report a crime and whatnot. Well, it's a little too late. I think people, after COVID, um, got the biggest red pill that they could ever get. So everybody, anybody out there listening, don't fall for it. They're the same people that they were a year ago or a year and a half ago. So let's not allow them to pull the wool over our eyes this time around.
That's a great point, man, for sure.
No, I mean it's it's good to hear like the plans you got for the community, because I think that's what matters most, right? Um, where you live and how you're gonna impact that area. Because like I said earlier, a lot of these people that have been in the Senate, the state assembly for decades, it seems like, um, they end up just representing their party and what their party wants, and not really what benefits their community. And I think that that's the main thing that everyone going in to one of these positions should focus on, right? And like you were saying about having meeting with businesses and kind of highlighting them, setting them up to succeed is like, I think that'll, with that mentality, I believe, once you do get into the state senate, you would be pushing for bills that are gonna take away some of these things that make it harder, right, on people's lives. These
Restrictions. Yeah.
restrictions, these taxes, all the stuff that I don't know how other people don't see it, but I feel like our California state government is anti-business. So, I think that's one thing that hopefully when we do flip those more than 5 seats in the state senate, and I believe it was 9 in the state assembly. So when we get more than both of those, that's something that I think California needs a lot of deregulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need change, man. That's the bottom line, and it's to take this mess that it has been created and to just start unraveling it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like you said to your point earlier, it's been decades that they've been doing this forever, right? And now it's going to take. We're going to move it at a yard at a time, but we're going to keep the momentum going, right? And if we can
Yep.
do 20 yards at a time, even better. But the reality is that until we are able to break that supermajority in both the assembly and the senate, then we're going to start to be able to gain even some more momentum with that too. But the reality is, keep in mind, this isn't my race. This isn't any of the other candidates' races. This is our race. It's our responsibility. If we want to see that change, we need to start by voting and educating ourselves, educating our family members, our neighbors, and our friends, and talking about it, talking about the issues. And if you have a question, go to my website, send me an email, talk to me. If you want me to come and speak to you guys, the cities I named on there as well too, let me know. I'd be more than happy to sit down and you can ask those questions. Like I said, what you see is what you get, man. I'm not gonna just change every time I'm in a different group, and it's just this is just my
You're not gonna change your accent when you're talking to certain people.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And I'm fluent in Spanish too, man. So I speak fluently, right, and all that stuff too. So either conversation we'll have, but it won't be with that fake Spanish accent or whatever. You know what I mean?
I love
So
you.
yeah, see, right?
No, but I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the biggest things is Daniel says this all the time is the echo chamber over there in Telemundo and Univision and all of that. Um, ho- when you talk to Latinos, have you noticed a shift in them too? Do you have conversations with people that speak fluently in Spanish? That's the main way of the communication. And what do you see? Do you see a shift on with them as well?
No, I absolutely. I've been also another podcast, Spanish podcast, and talking to folks in Spanish, and even having group conversations where I joke I can speak fluently, but there's sometimes how it is, dude. You get older, you forget some of the words, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
need somebody to translate this word or whatever. But
Yeah.
and it's always been fun and funny that way. But to your point, I've seen it change, and it's more about they want to learn more. They want to know more about what's going on, and what do you do about this, and how are you handling, the safety in our families with all the smash and grabs and all that. They want to know, and I think and I don't want to assume, but it just seems that nobody's taking the time to really sit down with a lot of our groups to be able to just sit there and have a Q&A, ask
Yeah.
questions. I may not have all the answers, but I'll get back to you with an answer.
Mhm.
to the best of my ability. But again, at the end of the day, if we're going to remember something, it always comes down to communication, and that's what I think is key. Being truthful, communicating, and being transparent.
Yeah, no, that's why I like that that Trump did the town hall on Univision, and it's kind of like what you're saying, right? You just get random people there, at least that's what it's supposed to be. And they're
Yeah.
asking they're asking Trump questions, right, in Spanish, and the translator's translating. Um but yeah, to hear directly, because I I work with a lot of Spanish speaking people, right? That's all they speak. And sometimes you'll get the question like, hey, ¿y qué piensas de Trump? ¿Qué
Mhm.
piensas de esta vieja? And I just, and then I had to, sometimes you're at work, you gotta watch out, right?
Yeah.
I can't go full extremist on him right away. No, just kidding. I have to kind of, well, ¿qué piensas tú? And then they start telling me, they think this or that and that, and then you kind of start nudging them a little bit, or just being like, okay, yeah, exactly, so, but it's not available to everyone, right, to have those conversations. And you know in a sense, we try to do some stuff in Spanish, but we do have full-time jobs, and I wish we could do more, but sometimes it gets tough. But here and there, it's like, yeah, it's good to have these conversation with random people that are just kind of curious, right? And maybe, yeah, they don't have anybody else to talk to about it, so it's like, hey, let me ask. I see this guy all the time. Let me see what he says. We get along pretty good. Let me see what he thinks.
Yeah. So what you guys are telling me is that you're dropping pastillas rojas in Spanish.
Yeah, absolutamente.
Están siguiendo el conejo blanco, right?
Ten tu pastilla. ¡Sas!
Aquí está tu medicina.
Oh,
I mean, it's funny, but I think, yeah, with little red pills here and there. And it's not so. It's not I wouldn't think it's like in an aggressive manner or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's just
It's
like
just
right.
a
conversations, like we said.
conversation, yeah.
That's all
and
it is.
and and I think that's part of the shift that Danny was asking about earlier. It's like, before, like, people would never bring it up. They wouldn't ask you anything politically about what you thought about this or that. Now more and more people are starting to ask questions. You know what I mean? And I think it's, we like to say, vote your reality. And I think it's part of that, because the reality is everything's more expensive. Things are harder. Your PG&E bills keep going up. You know what I mean? Like, everything is just getting harder and harder for everyday life. And I think people, you know, are really starting to wonder, what the hell is going on. Maybe their kid came home with a what's your gender paperwork or something, and then they, maybe they looked it up. What the hell is this? So I think people are getting pushed to their limit, and I think, as I said earlier, that's why we're gonna see a big shift, and this election is a great opportunity for that.
Yeah.
And you know what? Also, to add to that, man, I think what's really sad to me is that these laws, these things that are killing our communities. I also think about the fact that of our veterans, right? I also think about the fact of our senior community who are on fixed incomes, dude. So
Mhm.
with everything going up, even if it's $10, $20, if you have a senior, man, just on a fixed income that it's just right down to the penny, how are they going to survive? Our kids can't even buy houses, or let alone rent a place, right? Because everything is so astronomically expensive, right? Gas, like everything on there. And I think that's the thing that we have forgotten, like these ripple effects of what your choice or your decision in creating this law or creating this legislation, how is it really going to affect the real people, not you that are up there on top, not you that can sit there and say, okay, just throw this out there or whatever. It's us, it's a community, it's our seniors, it's our kids, it's our veterans. At the end of the day, it cannot go on like this, man. Or what's the alternative, right? You're gonna
Yeah.
get everybody out of California, so you just can run it the way you want it. It's not reasonable, right? It has to change. It has to get back to common sense.
Yeah. And you know what doesn't make common sense, and it's waking up people? Inflation goes up 10% or more, and then they get a 2% raise to compensate for that. The math ain't mathin'. And
Mhm.
you know what happens is they raise the prices, and supposedly, things get back to normal, but those prices never go back to what they were before. And our wages, again, I use that example because that literally happened to me. Is it's like here's a raise to compensate, and it's like, but wait a minute, these percentages are way off right here. And
Yeah.
the more that happens, the more people wake up. And taking it back to something that I've seen a common theme in is been focusing on reading the Bible a lot more. And the common theme is that um people get close to God. God is always there. um and bad things happen, and people get closer to God. That's when they feel that they have to get closer to God. Then things are good, people go away from God, and then things get bad, come back, and it's almost
Yeah.
like a reoccurring thing, you
It's a
know.
vicious cycle, man. Yeah.
And hopefully this is one of those times where people, and I see it, we try not to pay attention too much to celebrities and stuff like that, but I'm just using this as a point that I'm trying to make. Is you see a lot of people getting closer to faith that are in the entertainment business or whatever, right? And there's a reason for that, is because people feel, we talked about a spiritual warfare going on. People feel it, it's real. And they want to get closer to goodness. They want to get closer to God. And I just really do hope that it is genuine, that they are getting closer to God, Jesus Christ, and accepting them. And if they are influencing people, I hope that that's the only influence that they do have, is that they're getting closer to God. So um, I hope we're in those times where people just are getting closer.
Yeah.
But also it's to the point where we all struggle, right? There's no perfect life. Only God was perfect. But
Hmm.
it's up to us, man, to just be there for one another, and I think that goes a long way, right? When you're having
Yeah.
those down moments, pray with someone or ask for
Yeah.
prayers. There's nothing wrong with that, man. And I think it's also like I'm going to use me as an example, right? As a guy, it's hard for us to ask for help, let alone for prayer, right? But there's nothing written. Nobody's ever told me that no, you can't ask for prayer or whatever. And I think that's when we make that a source, and you in your own body, your own skin, feel comfortable enough to just say, hey man, I need some prayer. I'm
Yeah.
struggling with it. But it comes down also that I think that folks get very closed in because they think that other people are going to judge them, right? And again,
Yeah.
I'll go back to saying we're not perfect, right? And there's a reason you ask for help. There's a reason you ask for prayer, because you're struggling. And I don't care who you are. We all struggle. We all sometimes are in that low that we need to be pulled out of. And sometimes, sadly, pride gets in the way, or embarrassment gets in the way. Like, how are you going to view me now? It's like, now I showed you a weak side of mine. How are you going to exploit that? Because reality is that a lot of people will do that, right? But if you're
Yeah.
comfortable, and again, like you're saying, you're leaving everything on faith and trust in God, then what does it matter what anybody else thinks, or period, right?
Right. Right. No, and that's when like we said, we talked to a lot of people, and that's when you see that they're genuine about what they're trying to do. and it shows a lot because we're all in this struggle together, right? Whether it's being here or dealing with California and the quality of life and whatnot. And a lot of the people, like yourself and others, have stepped up because they seen that, yeah, their neighbor, right, is struggling. It's hard on me, it's hard on you, and someone's got to step up and do something, right? And then that's why we're so thankful for people like you that actually jump in the race. Not everybody wants to do it. I don't know how long you've been campaigning for. The length of time, but most people it's over a year.
It's been
You
like
know,
that. Yeah.
and we talked about this on our last episode. It's not an easy road. It gets tough, but there's people out there that want to do what's right for their neighbor, you know, and I hope that's kind of like part of the reason I do this is because I do hope that we're not a super big show, uh, you know, we're just some little guys here talking to just everyday people that are also tired of what's been going on and they want to jump in and make a difference. So that's why I do this. I think Danny said this earlier. If you can change one mind, one mind at a time, you know, I'll take it because it. I feel like we're fighting for something that's important. You know what I mean?
But what you just said right now, it's actually, you may think that way about your show, but it's a very powerful show that's going to go a long way because of the way you guys address it. You guys really just, you talk the talk with it, man, right? This is just regular people talking about issues, regular people talking about what's going on in our communities. Nothing more, nothing less. And I think that's what resonates with a lot of us that, oh yeah, I'm going through that, or yeah, I can relate to that. It's not a show about entertainment. It's a show about real life things that are happening, and I think that's what separates you from a lot of different people, a lot of online podcasts and shows too. So hats off to you guys for doing that.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Sorry, my internet connection over here is not the best. So I don't even know where I got cut off. I was like,
No, you got. I saw you froze. I was
Daniel,
like, damn,
look
he's.
on you,
Yeah,
man.
I was like, he's either really still or he froze. I was like, but if he's still, I was like, that's pretty good. He didn't even blink. But no, man. Before we wrap this up, just is there we're close to the election. People already turning in their ballots and all that. So for the person that's still thinking, hey, I'm in District 29. I got what's her name, Eloise Reyes. We're not related. On the ballot, or I got Carlos Garcia, right? What would be your pitch to that person that's doesn't know what to do? I feel like things haven't gotten better, but is this guy gonna be any better? What would your pitch be to them?
I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't even call it a pitch. I think for me, it's more my message to them is, um, I'm just like you, man. I'm not like I said earlier. I'm not a politician. I'm here because I want to make a difference for our communities. I'm here because I've got the full support of our law enforcement, but more importantly too, I'm here because I want to be part of this movement, this group that's going to change our communities for the better. For me, it's all about accountability. It's all about communication, and I want to bring that back, to make sure that when you elect me, that you say, hey, I'm able to talk to my senator, and he's not sending a field rep. He's not, never showing up just when it's election time. I want to be able to be that hands-on individual because I live it every day. I'm a business owner. I'm a father. I'm a family man. I work hard with our community. I work hard for our veterans each and every day. And like I said, I'll go back to saying I'm just like you. The difference is that this race is not just my race, it's our race. And I want to make sure that when we win this seat, it's not me winning it. It's all of us because of the effort that we put in. It's all of us because we want to see change. And it's all of us because number one, we value our faith and we value our families. And I think that's what's going to drive the message home that things have to change once and for all.
Oh, that's awesome. The the one thing that I do want to add is we're part of Luca Latinos United for Conservative Action also, and one of the things that we've been talking about is engagement and going out and voting. So if you're listening to this, you're Latino, white, black, Asian, like we said earlier. Um, be the biggest influence in your family. Have these conversations. Talk about um, local representation, propositions, study them, um, go out, have dinner, make a thing of it, go out and vote as a group, and then go have dinner. But the important thing is make this part of not your culture, but a routine. Make it a family event, make it a friend event, make it cool. We joke around and talk about this, but we really have to make this part of a routine that we do. Um, like I said, with our friends and family, to make an effective change for ourselves. We've said it a bunch of times. If we don't go out and get engaged and activated and don't do our part and don't vote, honestly, we really don't have any right to complain about it. So go and do your part. That's the only thing that I really want to stress as we get closer and closer. We joke around about it, but it's around the corner. The countdown is on. So go out there.
Hey, and I just noticed the comments on the side. I just realized all the comments. So thank you for all the kind words and the support, man, too. And that's obviously thanks to you guys, for making that happen too. So
For
No,
sure, man.
thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, like I said, man, you know, not a lot of people are stepping up and putting their name out there and trying to win a race to make a difference. And like I told you a little bit ago, it's a hard battle, right? It's a long battle, but like like Danny said, us as citizens of this state, of this country, you know, at the very least, vote. It's simple, and it shouldn't be something where we they want us discouraged. They want us to believe that it doesn't matter. And once they've done that, and you fall into that, it's like, well, yeah, how do you expect things to change? And yeah, why are you complaining if you didn't get up for it? So you know I think that what you said here today, and thank you for coming on. Not a lot of candidates are willing to come on and have a conversation. um you know and to the ones that have come on, and yourself, we appreciate that. It means a lot to us because we get to learn from, like you said, regular people that are just trying to make a difference. And even though, hey, you're not in my district and I can't give you my vote, at least I know, okay, hopefully someone out there that can, you know, hears this, or, someone shares this where, yeah, it does get picked up somewhere else, and someone sees it. Oh, this guy's my district. I liked what he said. So, I think that's what motivates us, and that's why we appreciate when candidates like yourself come on, and you're genuine, you're able to answer. I was watching a clip of uh Kamala Harris a little bit before we came on. I think she was on CNN, and they were asking her about basically, like, how she was saying Joe Biden was healthy the entire time, and kind of when did you notice that he finally wasn't, right? And as she's answering, she's like stuttering. She's trying to think of what to say and how to say. You know what I mean? Like you can tell that that's not genuine,
Yeah. She's trying to
right?
connect their Bluetooth earrings or what?
She was doing something, dude. She was doing something, but you know what I mean? It's obvious it's not a genuine answer, and she's not being honest to the people. So again, these conversations to me, I like them, and you know, I think we'll keep doing these. Hopefully, one day. You know what I want to do one day, Danny?
What?
I want to host a debate on here one day. We'll see. You know, Democrats a little scared to come talk, but
Yeah.
that'd be dope.
I will tell you, dude, that yeah. Please, now that I've subscribed to your channel, I want to make sure I keep track of all these great things you guys are doing. But to your point, when you said earlier too about even though you're not in my district, you can't vote. Well, what I am going to challenge you guys and the audience listening who are not in my district is just keep me in prayer. Keep all of our candidates in prayer, man. So we do make a difference for everyone, for all of our communities. You know.
Amen.
Oh man. Yeah.
Cool. You got anything else, Danny?
No, that's it. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you. Good luck. The best of luck to you, and God be with you.
Yeah. And if you haven't, go vote. If you're in that district, vote for Carlos. And hey,
Appreciate it, guys.
it
Thank you
was fun
again, man.
having
It
you
means a
off.
lot.
And thanks
Thank
everybody
you,
for
man.
tuning in, for the comments and all that. Peace be with you.
Peace be with you.